There are some events in history so terrible that if people knew about them, they might be too afraid to go to sleep at night. And one of those events is almost completely forgotten today. In 1885, the King of Belgium declared the Congo his own private property. He then turned the region into one of the most brutal prisons on earth, where the guards would chop off prisoners' hands as punishment. At least 10 million people were tortured and killed there. The worst part, no one talks about it anymore. So here's the story of the African Holocaust that no one talks about anymore. You've probably heard of the great explorers of the past, guys like Marco Polo and Christopher Columbus. But what about the ones who didn't make the history books? Well, let's start our story with Henry Morton Stanley, a British explorer who became famous for finding Dr. Livingstone in Africa. But he's also known for something else, carving out a slice of Africa for his good buddy King Leopold II of Belgium. You see, back then, Africa was fair game for European powers. In 1881, Portugal was the only country with colonies in sub-Saharan Africa. But soon everyone wanted in on the action. The French and British were fighting over Egypt. The Germans had taken a chunk of East Africa. And the Russians wanted in on the game, too. But Leopold didn't want his little kingdom of Belgium to be left out. So he hatched a plan to carve out his very own slice of Africa. Now, why Belgium? Why not just annex part of France or Germany? Well, before you ask that question, keep in mind that Belgium was a tiny, impoverished nation of 6 million people with a king who desperately needed a way to stay relevant. Luckily for Leopold, his explorer friend Stanley had found an area in Africa bigger than Belgium itself. All Leopold had to do was convince the local chiefs that he meant them well, pay them a few bucks, and sign a few treaties. And just like that, he was officially the owner of the Congo, which just so happened to be the size of China. Leopold called his new territory the Congo Free State. Sounds nice, right? Well, don't be fooled by the name. This wasn't a free state at all. In fact, the only freedom the locals had was freedom from paying taxes to Belgium. But in exchange, Leopold demanded total obedience. And if they resisted, Belgium would send in the troops. But that wasn't the whole story either. Oh no. To really get the people on board, Leopold claimed he created the Congo Free State to abolish slavery and promote trade. He even bankrolled anti-slavery campaigns across Europe. He opened newspapers, magazines, and billboards reminding people that he was their savior, a civilizer bringing the noble Africans out of the Stone Age and teaching them the light of Christianity and the order of Western civilization. But behind the scenes, Leopold was running a vast network of terror. His military force, the Force Public, patrolled the countryside with orders to shoot anyone who didn't cooperate. Now, Leopold wasn't racist. He hated everyone equally. But his favorite victims were the Congolese villagers. They were the backbone of the economy. They grew rubber, harvested ivory, and mined minerals like gold and diamonds. And Leopold wanted as much of that stuff as possible. But instead of paying the workers for their labor, he worked them to death. He shackled them to walls and forced them to sit in one spot until they turned to dust. He chained parents and children together so they could watch each other die of starvation. And if someone tried to escape, the guards chopped off their hands to make sure they wouldn't be running away again. Sometimes they'd even throw people in jail for having too many people in their family, because that meant more mouths to feed. Eventually, millions upon millions of Africans died. But none of this was an accident. It was all part of Leopold's plan. He wanted the Congo to be a giant money-making machine, and he was willing to sacrifice anyone, human or animal, to achieve his goal. But as bad as all that sounds, it gets even worse. I mean, imagine being an African man who lived during this time period. Your entire life, you've heard stories about evil white devils swooping down from the sky to steal your children, flog your wives, and burn down your villages. And one day it happens. You walk outside to find your village in ruins, your wife raped and murdered, your children chained up and being whipped. You try to charge at the soldiers, but they open fire. How would you feel when that bullet rips through your body? Angry? Sad? Betrayed? Well, hold on to those feelings, because now imagine experiencing this every single day of your life. Imagine how you'd feel after years and years of torment. Imagine how you'd feel if you survived the entire thing. That feeling, that's the feeling the people of the Congo have been dealing with ever since. And this wasn't some one-off event. This happened to millions of people. In fact, historians estimate that 10 to 15 million Africans were killed in the Congo Free State. Some estimates even put the number higher, like this one from the historian Ludo de Vera, who claims that Leopold personally ordered the killings of 20 to 30 million people. And if you think these numbers are hard to believe, remember that they're actually lower than the official numbers. Just after the Congo was taken from Leopold, the Belgian government organized an investigation into his crimes. And during the probe, they discovered that around 7 to 10 million people had died in the Congo. But because they didn't want to admit that their own country was responsible for such atrocities, they cut the number in half. Then they buried the real number deep in their archives. But if you think the killing is what makes this story the most horrific, you're wrong. The real horror lies in the small details, the stuff that seared itself onto the minds of those who witnessed it. Take, for example, the account of a Congolese woman named Ndara. She was woken up in the middle of the night by men with guns. When she stepped outside, she saw her husband and son lying dead on the ground. A white man was standing next to them with blood on his clothes. He pointed his finger at Ndara. She felt a searing pain in her chest and crumpled to the ground beside her husband. Her arm was gone. The white man picked it up and strolled away whistling a happy tune. Stories like this one are seared themselves onto the minds of every Congolese person alive today. And as sad and scary as they are, they're just the tip of the iceberg. There were people who tried to tell the world about the atrocities happening in the Congo, missionaries who wrote letters home describing what they'd seen, journalists like E.D. Morel, who compiled lists of atrocities committed by the Force Public, and Roger Casement, who wrote a report exposing Leopold's regime and even went to the Congo to take pictures as proof. In fact, Casement is believed to have taken the first ever war crime photographs. Pictures like this one of a father holding up his severed child's hand, or this one of a pile of hands next to a wall. These photos alone should have shocked the world, but they didn't. Not only did the public ignore them, they started calling him a liar. That's because Leopold had already brainwashed everyone into thinking he was the hero of Africa, and he wasn't about to let some random guy ruin his legacy. He spent millions of dollars funding pro-slavery newspapers, bribing politicians, and starting rumors about his critics. He even hired Pinkerton agents to follow around the people who opposed him. So for years, nothing changed. Leopold continued chopping off hands and watching people starve until Belgium finally took control of the Congo in 1908. By that point, however, the damage was done. Millions of people were dead. Entire communities had been wiped off the map, and the remaining Africans were traumatized beyond belief. So why don't we learn about this in school? Well, it's simple. For starters, Western textbooks don't like talking about their own people committing genocide. Belgium didn't even apologize for their role in the Congo until 2002, more than 40 years after the dictator was overthrown. And even that apology wasn't all that sincere. It read, "For the suffering that we have caused the Congolese people, for the serious violations of their human rights, for the abuses that we have committed, for the cruelties of which we have been guilty, we are sorry." That's a far cry from a straightforward, "We are sorry for murdering millions of people." On top of that, there aren't any memorials, statues, or plaques commemorating the victims. And worldwide recognition of the genocide is still fairly limited. Most people know about the Holocaust and the Armenian genocide, but hardly anyone knows about the Congolese Holocaust. But there's another reason why this story has been swept under the rug, one that goes beyond prejudice and apathy. According to psychiatrist Dr. Edward F. E. Warren, the psychological and generational trauma inflicted on the Congo continues to destabilize the nation even today. In his book, he writes, "The silent witness of the crime scene is still there, vivid and sharp in the collective unconsciousness of the Congo, woven into the fabric of the cultural memory. The mass trauma is still there, still echoing through the ongoing violence." In other words, the silence itself is part of the violence. So what can we do about it? Well, for starters, you can subscribe to History Rewritten. If they won't teach it in schools, we will. And thanks for watching.